All right, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm recording now. Do you guys want to record? Anybody? Cherie, do you want to record? Then you'll have a little recording of you talking.
Yeah, sure.
Anybody else? All right. Okay.
Nice.
All right, so I think what we should do, ladies, is, let's just talk for a minute about what we want to create moving forward, or what we want to create doing next. And do we want to keep doing it in this format, or do we want to change the format? Or what are the thoughts from the ladies? And then, Cherie, I would love it if you would do, even if you want to do a version of what you were going to present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can get that. That recorded and that sent out. Plus, I'm sure we will all learn from it. So, I want to start with reminding us all what we're doing here. So, for each of you, this is a platform where you find yourself among sisters and wise women, where you get the strength and wisdom and pride and practical guidance to realize the fulfillment of your dreams. And for the world, the Women in Wealth Initiative is a resource and an authority guiding industries, economies, and cultures into a world where equality is a birthright, where commercials like that crazy commercial that Nike does is not so strange. It's not crazy for women to be powerful and unreasonable and emotional and up to big dreams, right? So being on this journey and being part of this conversation means you are one of the women who are brave enough to say, we will make the world a better place. The Women in Wealth Initiative is creating wealth for women around the world, and wealth defined not just as financial abundance, but also happiness and health. And we will be organizing socially important causes with a goal to empower women to be the impetus for solutions and issues of the world. We will be a consulting, educational, inspirational initiative that brings to life communities that in turn are impacting humanity. So that's what we're doing here. That's why we gathered together. That's why we keep showing up for this and figuring out what the hell we're doing anyways, is a united commitment to no bullshit, real change, however that may look, whatever our life may be doing at the time. So that's what we're gathered here today to do. And every time we're doing this, we're learning lessons. We're learning lessons about what it takes to have people show up. We're learning lessons with what it takes to inspire us to action, what it takes for us to experience that we have this strong foundation of powerful women backing us and that anything is possible. So all of that is what we're at work on here. And this is another opportunity for that. So without further ado, one of the reasons why I asked Cherie to lead this particular call, her vision on the work that she does in her business, and Cherie, I'll let you say something about your business, but her vision and how she expresses herself and how she's branded herself is one that crosses borders, beliefs. It crosses, this is the way business is done. She has thrown all of the prejudices and boxes that people have tried to put her in. She's thrown them away and created something that is unreasonable and unpredictable and extremely powerful. So, Cherie, you're one of the women I am proud to be associated with because you're so true to yourself and to your own beliefs. And that kind of strength and power is something I would love to have available to all the women of the world, to all our daughters, sisters, cousins, nieces. So thank you for being that kind of human in the world, and thanks for leading that charge, and thanks for doing this training today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know it's always, we're unaccustomed to being appreciated in the world. It's
especially for women, and then it just saying okay, thank you, I take it, and not throwing the compliment back.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, shall I share the screen? Let's see if this works. Can you see what I'm seeing?
Yes, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So something that my business partner and I, Zina Sultana and I have, basically we joined forces at the beginning of last year. And so she's come from a property background. I've come from an Airbnb hospitality background. And when we started putting ourselves out there in the last few years, we realized a lot of people approach us for advice. For, okay, how do you raise money for property? How do you grow a business? How do you da da da? And we realized that we know a lot more than we look age-wise. So I look very young. I'm not that young. And age bias, ageism, is something that I've had to fight through almost all my life, and I still do. But when we have built relationships, when we have networked, when we have built quality relationships, people really do come up and ask us, like, what is it in these situations that we can do with our business? How can I raise that amount of money? Blah, 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 blah. So we thought, okay, there must be some kind of market out there. There must be a need that we can meet if people are coming to us asking about these questions. So we thought, okay, we'll create Entrepreneur Me, which eventually will become a platform for proven business building content, creating top entrepreneurs everywhere. And to start with that, we thought, okay, we need to speak, we need to get out to as many places as possible and come up with as many topics as possible. And something that really stuck with people somehow was how to start a business in 10 days. So essentially, it's the 10 steps, it's the fundamentals of starting or growing a business. Because if you come away from the fundamentals, that's when things go wrong. So I'll give you a little bit of my background and how I got to where I am really, really quickly, okay? So how do I do this? Oh, perfect. Can you see this better? Okay. So the two of us, so we do international live events, we host them, we speak in them, we do workshops, masterclasses. This was in Sri Lanka last July, which was phenomenal. And so many of those people are still following us, especially on Instagram. Instagram is huge. And as we're hosting and creating events, we realize that different countries have different preferences when it comes to their social platforms. And at the beginning, you know, there's a lot of limitations that people have put on us and have said, why don't you go after the women, like the female entrepreneurs, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but I don't know why. People keep showing up and it's always 50-50. So we hadn't felt the need to go after the female market, basically. So we do a bit of corporate training. I'm actually at a hotel at the moment because I'm going to be speaking at an event where they have 20 young female leaders on the global diversity and inclusion program. So straight after this, I'm jumping into their evening networking drinks. We also do one-on-one consulting. What's been really fun lately is that we're starting to speak in universities. That was also on our Empire plan. But we just didn't think it would get us there as quickly. We just put it on a whiteboard sheet on the wall at my house in January, and somehow 9 months later, we were at universities. So we talked about career, we talked about staying agile in terms of the career and spotting opportunities. Then these are master students. This was just 2 weeks ago. They were so good. They were so fun. Different ages, but yeah, so they all come from a lot of tourism, hospitality, sports background, interestingly. Don't know how they got the club together, but that was really cool. And we realized that what we talk about is universal across ages. So, have you heard about this company? Just nod, I can look at you. Airbnb, it has mushroomed and it's actually only 11 years old as a company. So my last business is Hostmaker, which I co-founded right from concept into execution. Within 4 years, it's currently in 7 countries within 7 years. 7 countries, 4 years. has delivered over 61 million pounds of profits to homeowners, property owners, and it was, according to Forbes, one of the 5 fast-growing British businesses to watch in 2016. As a company, we've raised $29.3 million from venture capital, from all sorts of people. But very, very humble beginning. We didn't have an office, so we rented an apartment and just painted it. This is before we painted the hotel, so we were just drawing on that. The team grew gradually. And so this is actually in the beginning of year 2. Actually, this is year 2.5. We had 60 team members. By then, we were already in 3 countries. So it's now in, quite a few places in Europe and also in Bangkok, which is really, really fun. You can see them on the underground station, all that. But the most exciting thing for me personally is that something that we had thought of 4 years ago is now coming into fruition. And one of it is collaborating with the biggest hotel company on the planet. So these portfolio of homes, or a selection of them in London, in Rome and Paris, have actually become one of Marriott's brands, because the hotel companies are trying to get into the home sharing space. And as with all industries, we know when it's new, it's very scattered. As it matures, it kind of segregates. It kind of, diverts into the premium sector, the kind of medium, and then the lower end of stuff. So Marriott, as with quite a few other hotel companies, are really going to that space. And so, for me personally, I just thought, wow, something that I thought of that was on a whiteboard is now actually happening. Something that we talk about all the time is we always think success is linear, but it isn't. And when it comes to business, it looks more like the one on the right hand side, and no one ever talks about the beginning. We're like, we're gonna start, we're gonna make $1 million in year 1. No, you're not. And so this is something that I'm always very mindful of, especially when things don't move as quickly as I wanted to. I love this particular quote from Mel Robbins: "Your problem is not the ideas, your problem is you don't act on them." I am totally guilty of this. I have a real issue of procrastination, but I'm aware of it. But what is frustrating sometimes is when you actually don't talk about, we don't act on it, and then you keep complaining about the same problem. Anyway, so something that I do keep in mind that I want to ask you to think about is, what is your track record? I had this conversation with a girlfriend of mine a few weeks ago who's just come off a full-time job of 3 years. She's a fashion stylist. She's worked for Vogue. She's worked for Vogue India, worked with a lot of Bollywood stars. She's worked in Vogue in Italy and a few other amazing magazines throughout Europe. And she just came out of a job with Net-a-Porter, where she really learns all about e-commerce and combining that with fashion. And she was so depressed because as a freelancer, she was thinking, how am I going to grow this? How am I going to survive? And my thing is, Sharon, you need to sit down and write down your track record. You need to ground yourself in knowing what is it that you have done. Because when it's clear in your mind, you know what you can deliver and more. One of my track record is this particular photo. I love it. We're sitting on a mountain of pillows. So I was working in a hotel up until 4 or 5 years ago. So that's where the hospitality came from, with the whole Airbnb thing. And I was leading the largest team in the hotel, the housekeeping team, about 76 people. And most of them, English is not their first language. So I've had to really develop my leadership skills to inspire, to educate, and influence what everyone does on a day-to-day basis, and also putting those processes together so that it becomes quite brainless. One of the projects that I've had to do twice in my 20s is change all the beds in the hotel. So that's 283 beds, the bed frames, the mattresses, all the duvets, and all the pillows, without closing any room off. So that's 283 mattresses and 1,190 pillows in and out of the hotel. It was crazy. And if you have been to London, buildings in central London are very, very old. So in hotels, often there is only one elevator. So moving all that goods up and down the stairs was really crazy. So when I talk about that track record, is I'm very specific in those numbers because it builds my credibility. So my question to you is, what is yours? Is it the total number of sales or revenue, the percentage growth year on year, the amount of money raised or saved, the number of countries that your company is in, so on and so forth? For me, that is so crucial. If it's clear in my head, I know I can do a whole lot more because that's just the floor that I'm working on. So for the 10 steps, I'll be really quick with these. How's everyone so far?
Excellent.
Okay,
I
great.
think everyone's muted except for me. You're kicking ass, girl. Give us more.
So number one is identify the problem, the gap, and the desire, and who it affects. So business for me is quite simple, but it's not easy. It's either solving a problem or fulfilling a desire. What a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs tend to do is they try to create solutions for problems that don't exist. And that's a real issue. And that's also for business owners who've forgotten that their customers, their clients also change. And therefore, their problems are also evolving. And it's always getting back to that basics. What are the problems I'm solving? What are the desires I'm fulfilling? The bigger the desire, the more innovative your solution, the more money you're going to make. Step number 2, clarify the ultimate benefits and then creating your 29 seconds pitch. So in a bit, I'm going to speak to these 20 young female leaders who really need help in knowing how to network because they don't have their own businesses. They work for a hotel. And the person who invited me has specifically said, I love one of your events or one of your presentations. It's called How to Network to Build Your Net Worth. Women need to know how to network and not hold on to relationships that doesn't work. So creating that 29 seconds pitch, you need to know in terms of how to introduce yourself is what benefits do you bring? Because people don't care about what you do, they only care about them. So the ultimate benefits for me is 6 very, very simple ones. You help people make money, save time, look good, live longer, and escape from reality. Either one or those, or any one of the combination of those 6. I love them. Let's say Uber. Uber is not really in the business of transport. Uber is in the business of saving time. It's making it convenient for everyone. So that's one of the ultimate benefits. So number 3, in terms of like the networking, the 29 seconds pitch, when you know what you have to offer, you know the solutions that you bring to the world, go and tell everyone. Something that I've heard for many years is if you have a great idea, don't tell anyone about it. Has anyone heard that before? Yeah. I don't buy into that anymore. If you have a great idea, go and tell everyone you know, because 99% of people who've heard about your great idea won't steal it because they're too lazy to do anything about it. And that is just the absolute truth. But when I find the opportunity to tell people about what I do or the solutions or what I offer in different industries, I will eventually find, okay, well, someone could be in a different industry but serving the same end user. And if someone already knows the challenges that they have in this particular industry, you will learn a lot quicker. And most of the time, you can actually collaborate. Because you're targeting the same group of people by offering different services, but you're still solving that client's problems. So talking to people, to me, is just essential. Number 4 is defining the niche, the target audience. And when you've talked to enough people, you will know who that target audience is. And when you look at who currently is who is making up your client base in your business, you will also see, well, who else are they linked to? But defining who you're after makes it a lot easier for you to go after them. When you chase many rabbits at once, you get none. The next one is in terms of the income streams and value of solutions. Again, the more innovative your solution is, the better, the greater that value is. The income streams we talk about multiple income streams. That also comes from how can we affiliate and collaborate with other people. The quickest way to go into another country is through collaboration. It's very, very easy these days to go international. There's also, so, in our property industry that I'm very closely associated with, for mortgage brokers, they get their referrals from the insurance people, from the estate agents, and from some people who source the companies who find those deals. It's the same industry, but they're all related, and there are multiple income streams there. The mortgage broker is not only earning the percentage of whatever mortgage that they were able to provide, they're also earning referrals from the insurance guys because that affiliation happens. So a lot of people think when they launch a business, especially like, this is the one way that I'm going to make money. It's not true. There will always be more and more and more ways to create that wealth. Number 6 is the cost and the return on investment. Whatever you think something is going to cost, double it. I was at an event about 2 years ago where I heard someone from on the outside of the pond is Dragon's Den. In the US is Shark Tank. So one of the dragons I was listening to in this presentation, totally forgot his name. I don't watch TV either, so I actually really don't know who he was. But he mentioned something very, very interesting, which was he will always fund a female founder because female founders are meticulous in how they calculate money. It's never 250K. It's always 239,000 pounds, 433 pence or something like that. And he's like, that's the frustrating thing about women. Just go big. Whatever that you need, double it. The guys, he said, is very simple. They go from 1 million. They ask enough people who will not give them $1 million. They go down to 750K and 500K and 250K. Like this is just how that they work. And this guy was saying, like, just be bold enough to ask for more than you need. But knowing that whatever that cost that the kind of cost that you will manage to get, just double it because it gives you a little bit of buffer, and knowing how much time you're going to get that return. And return on investment is not just in finance, it's also in time. It's productivity. So number 7, the legals and the regulations. Obviously, I'm not a solicitor, but that's the beauty of understanding who are in the other industries who could be of your help. I will never give financial advice. I will never give legal advice because I'm not qualified to. But if you are launching a solution or creating a new side of the business and you think, you know what, I'll just double check whether it is something that I need to get around. Maybe there's a law around it. I need to be safe. Go and speak to someone. There's a lot of, we were at a university student enterprise pitching event 2 weeks ago. And someone had told us, like, this is the idea they were pitching, blah, blah, blah. And the first thought for me was, have you spoken to a solicitor about this? Because it doesn't feel legal. It's very disruptive, which is great. Lots of disruptive, companies are happening. But what are you doing to cover your back? One of our, and with that also, is staying updated in your industry regarding the legals around it. One of our, someone that we were working with, who's an accountant, over the last 3 years, had lost almost 1,000 clients because of one change in a particular industry in healthcare within the UK. And it just so happens that most of his clients are from the healthcare industry. So they actually overnight no longer needed his service. And my first thought was, you know what, I'm really sorry, but you've waited this long to get help. In those times, you could have set yourself up as an authority, as an accountant in another industry. Because your skills are transferable, you're not held hostage in this one industry. But that's the cost of not staying up to date with what's happening and not being proactive about it. Number 8, operations, logistics, and the people. I do not want to be, So in my last business, I always talk about this. I've been sleeping maybe 4 or 5 hours at a night max, because I was managing the whole operations, especially in London. So we had housekeepers, we had drivers, we had so many keys going into properties. It's unbelievable, tracking keys. But we didn't know that was something that we were going to come against. What we should have done when we started that business is go by area to area. But we're like, no, we can service all of London. Rose would know transport is crazy. And London is a really, really big city. That was something that we really didn't think it through, because at the beginning we're like, we'll just take everyone. And then there was a point where we had customers way in East London, and then and then a whole bunch of other customers in West London. And for the drivers, that's an hour and a half in traffic. That's not efficient. But thinking that through, the logistics of things, and who are the best people on the team to do it. Number 9, branding and marketing. That goes without saying is hugely important. To me, branding is your reputation, is what people say about you behind closed doors. Marketing is all about eyeballs. Where are people's attention? Where are people's eyeballs? I heard, also I was following this particular marketing agency in New York, and they sent out a newsletter which was talking about how for the 50+ community, ads in Gmail really work. But I don't even open Gmail these days because everything else is synced on my phone and my various devices. But for that particular community who's still very web-based, they still have the ads on the right-hand side. So if you were a company with, products or services targeted at that particular demographic, you need to follow that advice and buy ads on Gmail. But that wouldn't apply to me. It wouldn't apply to everyone. So it's knowing, again, your target audience, what channels they are using, where are their eyeballs. And last but not least, is values, your principles, and your why. As women, we need to follow our intuition a whole lot more. There are times where I felt like, you know what, Zena, it just doesn't feel right. This person is great, but I don't feel it. And we had turned down potential projects because of it. For me, yes, I have my values and all my principles almost listed down and we're in sync. But at the end of the day, I have a second brain in my guts. I'm going to follow that intuition because I don't know what I would be saved from. And most importantly, whether it be your own business, whether it be, whatever future that you're trying to carve, is knowing why it is that you're doing. Because it's so easy, you run out of money, cash flow issues, blah, 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 health, all these can collapse at the same time. My dad is actually in hospital at the moment. Zena's father had a minor heart attack a month ago. I had scarlet fever at the beginning of last month. Just one thing after another is nonstop. So if my why is not strong enough, I would have like, you know what, I'm throwing everything out the window. I'm going to move country, travel around. I mean, I don't know. I could really go off and say, I can't do this anymore. But that's not going to get me anywhere. If I am, which I am, talking about changing the world, I really need to know very, very clearly why I'm doing that. Because it's very, very easy to throw in the towel. Everything should end with Oprah. This is one of her speeches. I think it was after she won this particular life achievement award at the Emmys. I think this must have been early last year. So this was actually at the interview after. The key to fulfillment, successful happiness, contentment in life is when you align your personality with what your soul came to do. I don't know about you, but it takes a little bit of time to discover what your soul had come to do. And it is trying as many things as possible, and it is a process of elimination. What don't I like? What is it that just doesn't tick? What is it that doesn't work for me? Eventually you'll get to what it is that gives you happiness, and it's regardless of the amount of wealth. That is what I have to say in a very, very quick version.
That's brilliant. Thank you, my dear. That is awesome.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of resources that it's let's see, one of the reasons behind my why for Women in Wealth Initiative is I discovered last year that in America, it was 1977 was the first time a woman could own her own credit card. And I just discovered recently it was 76 that was the first time a woman could have the title of a property in her name without also having her husband or father there. And that means that there's this historical long-term knowledge that's missing for so many women, powerful business women. So the kind of tools that you just gave, Cherie, are the kind that are like, I imagine guys would talk about around, the bar or the gentleman's the salon, exactly. And that they would pass on these wisdom and little tips and lessons and things that they had learned. So I really appreciate you being willing to share your wisdom and have that be available. And this is the vision and the intention behind this initiative, wherever it goes, whatever it ends up looking like, is that this information, power, and resources is available to all the women around the world. So I love that you said, if you have a good idea, spread that everywhere. Awesome. Excellent. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Cherie, or anything you want to say or add?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Cherie, thank you so much. I really appreciated the international focus that you gave to me. I mean, I'm in Canada and I've done a lot of work in Toronto and the surrounding area, and hearing how you've trained in Sri Lanka and what's been happening for you in Europe and the UK and everything you've done, it it sounds both familiar and different. So it was very expanding perspective for me. And even though some of the pieces you taught were familiar, they had a very different spin on it. So it was very expansive for me. And I want to thank you for that.
I think what I found very, quite eye-opening for me in the last year, going to Sri Lanka, we were in Singapore and Hong Kong, we were in Austria and Germany as well, is how the feedback is that how applicable it was. And then at the same time, how lacking in that business education that it could be that simple. Yeah, so I'm glad to have received very similar feedback in all these different countries. So I thought, oh, okay, must be true then.
Totally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Cherie. It was really nice presentation. Looked very smart as well, and I think you delivered the message very, very good. So your audience later today will love it, just like we did.
Thank you.
Well, and I guess the thing for me is the timeliness of the conversation, not just the actionable, like, oh, I could do this or I could do that, like applicable things. It addresses like a world conversation right now. And I can only imagine how things are around the world. Here in the States, we live in interesting times. As the curse goes. And I was really found myself listening for the application or the insight that was really valuable just in general, doing business in this current time, with social media. That's very different than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And also just the humanness and then the differences. Believe it or not, Denver, Colorado has bizarre traffic too. Just kind of the similarities that there are, that we, at least having never been to London per se, I have this picture of London that, is very different than just the human, gosh, we got to deal with traffic. So the whole conversation both had like a larger human sort of insight, and then the practical insights of, okay, you got to deal with traffic. And then the last piece is kind of like, just as an aside, I have this idea for a lid to cooking pots. And I have several friends that are chefs and stuff, and they go, nobody has that. That would be so great. And completely not necessarily in my field, except as Rose will tell you, I'm particularly, even though I'm a scientist and I have all this business and personal development and all this experience, I see the world through what works. That's kind of like if I was going to say my why, I want things to work. That is my passion, my raison d'etre. But anyway, I'm thinking, okay, how does one even go about getting an idea to production and gosh, if this is such a great idea, how come nobody else is doing it? And if I tell people, other people will just do it, and then I'll never make any money off of it. And do I even care? So the whole tell everybody was real timely, oddly enough.
I mean, although you know what, I was at this student enterprise pitching event, and there was this girl who is basically migrating her music background into kind of mental health. So she's actually doing a PhD in psychology. So she's created an app of some sort where you use music to really learn about emotional regulation.
Wow.
And it's targeted at, late teens to like early 20s kind of age gap. So she was telling everyone, and she managed to get a lot of collaboration in different departments in the university, and, really being able to create something pretty amazing. And the moment she started talking about it to investors, it went as far as Spotify. And that's when she had to stop talking about it to that group of companies. because Spotify was almost ready to just say, I want to buy your idea. But knowing that they could change it into something else that's not aligned with what she had intended it for it to do.
Right.
But so at that level, she realized, okay, I can't talk about it with Samsung and with all these companies because they could probably do a different version to what I'm trying to do. But up until then, she got so, she just really got so far with the little that she had simply by collaborating with others. And that is out of talking to everyone.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. In the, in your 10 points, kind of like how there's not one that's more important than the other. That every single one, if you don't attend to it or doesn't have equal and actual attention, isn't going to be valuable. Like they all kind of, the way you've articulated them, right? They all really set with each other. So if you really go all legal, well then and don't pay attention to the why, or you talk to everybody and don't pay attention to say the why, or anyway, but that kind of ties the whole thing together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yay. All right, my dear ladies, let's just see the next, hold on one moment here.